How are you doing this, Martin from Gardens for Life? Well, keeping plants in pots is really only to keep them mobile temporarily, and it is a lot of maintenance since that it is actually an artificial environment when you think about it. It's actually just a flower pot. Let me give you an example. This type of plant here, like a gooseberry, it's an artificial environment, so that means you have to take care of all the factors like watering and weeding, and temperature is also an issue too. So we found that an awful lot of our pots got very weedy, especially if you use compost that wasn't 100% without weed seeds or grass seeds too. Now that's just gone dry. We don't ever spray any chemicals in our plants, but you can see it's been a 3-week drought just now. Well, that killed the grasses and the weeds in the pots, but also a lot of our plants as well. But you can see what I mean. It's just too much maintenance, and obviously this compost here was full of weed seeds. But even these have gone so dry. You know, you'd want to even water them every day or two from the beginning if there is any droughts at all. And unless you have irrigation set up automatically, you're going to be basically out here watering every day if you have enough water. We store quite a bit of water in water tanks, but it's not enough when you have this many plants. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to remove all these plants here from this area, and we're going to remove the plastic also. I'll just show you what it looks like under here. So you can see here, it's still moist anyway under the plastic, not too bad after 3 weeks not having rain. But where it was exposed to the sun, you can see there is cracks because the plastic wasn't 100% overlaid on this spot. So that's okay, we'll keep it covered for the moment, and hopefully tomorrow we should be adding compost. A good thick layer of compost, probably going to do 8 inches of compost here, and then we might cover it with wood chips in due time using a wheelbarrow. We'll see, just to keep the weeds down more. Remember, you can never stop weeds, you can only slow them down. And wood chips are definitely an essential tool in doing so. In the first 2 years after putting down a 4 to 6 inch layer of wood chips, you will have no weeds, almost no weeds at all to deal with. But after that, 3 to 4 years into it, you'd have to kind of do a few hours of weeding in the garden per year. And I'm serious, it might not sound like a lot, but at the same time, I'm trying to really push the boundaries on reducing the maintenance in the garden to a minimum or to near zero, so that we can concentrate on the more fun parts in gardening, which is harvesting and planting. Well, you can see here, it has worked very well here in other parts of the garden. There's no weeds here at all. That's the path. We killed off the grass underneath first with plastic, and then we put the wood chips on top. And you can see our wood chip island is looking good. So I don't mind actually expanding the wood chip island and reducing the amount of plants we keep in pots, because you can't keep plants in pots forever. I mean, sure, these ones are about 1.5 years old now, but you can see there's moss, and it has eaten half the compost also. Look at that. I mean, that's still a perfectly good plant as long as you stick it in the ground. Now it's gone very dry, but it'll come back. And we'll just chop it when we plant it. Chop it about halfway, and then it's going to re-sprout and turn into a nice bushy form. But you can see here, that needs to be planted. We're going to just plant all these in the ground here and let them grow on for the rest of the season. At least we'll make the most of it, and that's it. And the edge here, you can see I've just folded it over with my legs, or with my feet, like that. You can see how the grasses have, hang on, it's either spiders or flies this time of year. You can see here how the plastic is kind of buried underneath. Hopefully I can remove that like that. So then you can see that needs to be cut off here now, and we need to put down some kind of a barrier here for the grasses so that they don't come through, because they will actually literally just climb over the top, you see. If it's this high, it is about 6 inches or 15 centimeters. The grasses in the summertime will still climb over it into your compost. So you need some kind of barrier that's tall enough. So I'm just going to cut this using my bushcraft knife. It is also known as a harvest knife, in our garden anyway. So hopefully it's lovely and sharp and you can cut straight through that. You can see it works. I was using a multi-tool previously in previous years, and it's a lot better. It's a lot more sharper and a lot more better to handle. But you can see how quickly you're able to cut the grass on the edge here, and you would not have been able to do that with a lawnmower very easily, because the lawnmower would have been choked by all the roots here, which are basically kind of like a carpet, making their own soil too. You can see it here, how there is actually soil built on top here. That could very well be a little bit of runoff from the pots here, but mostly it's actually worms that come from the grass here onto the plastic, and then they go under the grasses here that are just laying on top, and they rest there, and then they do their thing, leave some manure behind. What it's actually called from worms, worm castings I suppose. And you can see, of course, the grasses will not hesitate and tap into that source of fertility right underneath. So yeah, so that's how it basically turns into a carpet, and eventually of course the grasses will take over the entire place if you let them off for many years, I suppose. This is about a year worth, so once a year we have to do this, and one more cut later in the year, a small cut, but we can manage it with a lawnmower from here. But definitely if you let the grasses go for the first half of the season, like you can see here, I have not cut them since last year. This is what happens. And it's easy enough to manage, but as long as you do, because otherwise you get all this grass going to seed directly next to your garden beds, or even your where you keep your potted plants, your nursery. I would highly recommend to definitely stop the grasses from going to seed nearby any of your garden beds, because that's just extra hassle. How does the saying go again? It's 1 year's seeding is 7 years of weeding. That's an old farmer's wisdom. By jizz, I tell you now, it's spot on. Because we've been stopping a lot of the weeds from going to seed here by selective weeding. As Patrick Whitefield would call it, casual weeding, where we just walk around and just pull a few weeds here and there as we're coming around and harvesting. And it has done a good job, but we definitely need to do a bit more heavy weeding along the edges of our gardens here, especially because we have a grass pat. Oh, while I'm here, take a look at the Portuguese kale. It has come back from seed, actually, without me having to replant it. It actually just self-seeded. And the Jerusalem artichokes are doing really well here too. Yes, so that's the plan. We're going to get that done. I'd rather not keep as many plants in pots anymore, only the very valuable ones, just to keep those mobile during the growing season. Hang on, another fly. All these flies around. I need to get some lemon balm. It is worthwhile having plants in pots in case you want to start a new garden in the summer, or you want to expand your garden, or you want to have a nice present to give to people when you go to visit someone, or even to sell plants, or even to give them away, rather than having to take up a plant in the middle of the growing season and basically use it bare root. Like, you're basically just pulling it up carefully using a fork. But you can do that during the growing season, there's no problem. I've been doing that more and more often, but you simply cut the leaves, cut the stems and the leaves in half at the top, because you have severed its roots. So just a little tip there for you. And bare root during the growing season is definitely doable, and I don't have any problems with it. I'm sure it's not very efficient to knock the plant back by cutting half of its leaves off during the growing season, but at the same time, better than keeping plants in pots, definitely. See you at the next video, and thank you for watching. Bye bye. Here's a quick top tip. So these are white currants, and you can see they've gone very dry. You can see how the leaves have gone dry. So the best thing you can do is, if you think that the plant is not going to make it, first thing you can do is water it, obviously. But after that, if it looks like the plant is not going to do too well or not going to make it, all you have to do is cut the top off it. Just cut it in half. You see that? So that way the plant is going to resprout from the sides. Okay, it's going to get more bushy, but also it's going to preserve water for what it can supply, rather than having to supply all of these leaves here. And it might be able to bring those back. If they've gone dry like this, well then there's no point, because it's discarding those leaves because it can't supply those with adequate moisture. So just chop it. No harm at all. Any kind of plants in pots especially are best off to be chopped back, and then they're going to resprout stronger. Well, here's a wheelbarrow full of plants that didn't make it. Unfortunately, they're gone dry with the recent drought that we've been having. No rain for 3 weeks. Lost quite a few plants, and mostly probably because the compost has gone a bit old in these pots, and they were not able to hold water for long enough. A few more to go now, and there's also lots of good ones. Lots of good plants too. So I'm going to replant those here once we have the compost put down.